There was a small village called Zulazu, surrounded by hills and trees. A young lady named Olajumoke lived there. She was incredibly beautiful. Her skin was smooth and dark. Her eyes sparkled and her smile could lit up even the darkest of night. But it was this very beauty that made Olajumoke both admired and envied by everyone around her. Every morning, as the golden sun rose over the village, Olajumoke would wrap a colorful scarf around her hair, pick up her clay pot and walk alone to fetch water from the river. Unlike the other maidens, she had no one to accompany her. It wasn't because she was unfriendly or shy, but because none of the village girls wanted to be seen with her. They feared that standing next to Olajumoke would make them invisible. Her beauty was so bright that it made theirs seamless, so they kept their distance, whispering jealous words and giving her envious looks as she passed by. Words of Olajumoke's beauty spread far beyond her village, reaching the ears of wealthy merchants, brave hunters, and even noble princes from neighboring lands. Suitors traveled long distances hoping to win her heart and make her their wife. Each week, a new man would arrive at Olajumoke's family compound, bearing gifts of gold, silks, and rare spices. But Olajumoke's father, Babaola, was a greedy man. He saw his daughter's beauty as a ticket to wealth and power. Whenever a suitor arrived, he would greet them with a wide smile and warm words. But his true intentions were hidden behind his eyes. "Ha, my daughter is indeed the red gem," he would say. "But such a precious jewel deserves only the finest thing. What can you offer me in exchange for her hand?" One day, a wealthy trader named Dadisa came to ask for Olajumoke's hand. He brought with him chests filled with gold and silver, enough to buy half of the village. "I offer all this to prove my love for your daughter," Adisa declared proudly. Babaola, however, was not satisfied. "If you truly wish to marry my daughter," he said, adjusting his wrapper, "then you must also bring me 20 bags of the finest rice, 10 silk robes, and a necklace made of the rarest pearls." Adisa agreed, determined to win Olajumoke's heart. But as the days turned into weeks, the demands kept growing. By the time Adisa could not fulfill Babaola's endless request, he was left with nothing, and eventually he had to live in shame, unable to marry Olajumoke. This cycle repeated itself many times. Each suitor would arrive full of hope only to be driven away by Babaola's greed. Babaola's greed grew every day, and Olajumoke's mother, Mama Tunu, could no longer bear to watch. One evening, after yet another suitor had left their home empty-handed, Mama Tunu confronted her husband. "Why do you keep sending them away?" she shouted, her eyes blazing with frustration. "Our daughter is getting older, and you refuse to let her choose your husband. You demand so much that no man will ever be able to marry her." Babaola scoffed, waving her off. "You do not understand, woman. Olajumoke is the most beautiful girl in this village. No, in all the lands. She deserves only the finest, and I will not settle for less. I will choose the best suitor, and until then, no man is worthy." "But what about her happiness?" Mama Tino said. "Do you not care?" "Her happiness will come with wealth and power," Babaola declared stubbornly. Despite her father's greed, Olajumoke herself had turned away many suitors. She had grown up hearing endless praises about her beauty and felt no man in the village was good enough for her. When a suitor would present himself, she would wrinkle her nose, finding some flaws to reject him. "Too short," she would say of one. "He is too poor," she said of another. "His smile is crooked," she criticized another. "I deserve someone who is perfect like me." And so time passed and Olajumoke remained unmarried, as both her father's greed and her own vanity kept her isolated. One fateful evening, a tall, handsome man arrived in the village. His name was Ori. Unlike the other suitors, Ori walked with a confidence, and when he stood before Babaola, he did not bow or stumble over his words. "I have come for your daughter's hand in marriage," Ori declared. Babazola's eyes lit up with greed. "If you wish to marry Olajumoke, you must first prove that you are worthy. You must bring me a pot filled with gold, a bag of the finest diamonds, a herd of 50 cattle, and 10 barrels of the purest honey. Ori smiled as if amused by the demands. "Is that all?" he asked. "I shall bring you even more." And to everyone's astonishment, Ori returned the next day with a pot overflowing with gold, a bag filled with dazzling diamonds, a herd of cattle that stretched as far as the eyes could see, and 20 barrels of honey. Baba Ola's eyes widened, and for once he was speechless. "You have proven yourself worthy," he finally said, exchanging handshake. "You may marry my daughter." The wedding took place, and it was the grandest the village had ever seen. Drummers played and dancers performed. The air was filled with the sweet aroma of food and flowers. Olajumoke wore a stunning gown made of the finest silk, adorned with precious jewels, and her hair was braided with golden threads. Everyone in the village attended, and Baba Ola boasted proudly of the wealth his daughter had brought him. After the ceremony, it was time for Olajumoke to live with her new husband. She waved her parents and the villagers farewell, and they set off on a carriage journey. As Ori had told her that his home was in the neighboring village. After riding on the horse till late hours, they continued their journey with a boat. As they paddled further, the water began to change from a sparkling to a dark water. Olajumoke noticed that the journey was taking much longer than expected. After 3 days and 3 nights, she grew impatient. "You told my parents that you lived in the nearest village. Why is it taking so long?" But Ori remained silent. On the 4th day, they arrived at a dense, dark forest with gigantic ancient trees. "Where are we going, Ori?" Olajumoke asked nervously. "This is not the way to a village." "You ask too many questions," Ori replied harshly. "Keep walking." And for the first time, Olajumoke felt afraid. As a cold chill ran down her spine, she realized that perhaps there was much more to Ori than she had ever imagined. As they began walking deeper into the dark forest, something strange began to unfold. Olajumoke noticed that the man she called her husband, Ori, was walking slower. As if something was changing, she turned back at him just as he paused and spoke in a voice that seemed different and more scary. "I am no longer in need of this." To her horror, Ori started to remove his arms and handed it over to a spirit that appeared from the shadows. "Thank you," he said to the spirit before turning back to Olajumoke, who was now frozen in terror. What are you doing?" she stammered, her voice shaking with fear, but Ori ignored her and continued walking. As they moved deeper into the forest, Ori removed his legs, his chest, and even his skin, returning each part to various spirits who came to collect what was theirs. Finally, all that remained was his head, his true self. Olajumoke's eyes widened in disbelief. What are you?" she spoke softly, tears flowing down her face. "I am Ori," he replied, his voice echoing through the forest. "This is who I truly am, and this is your home now." He pointed to an old mud-covered hut that appeared in the clearing. It was dark and crumbling, surrounded by strange twisted trees. "Welcome to my home," Ori said with a creepy smile. "This is where you will live." Days turned into weeks, and Olajumoke was filled with despair. She refused to eat, her tears falling endlessly as she sat in the corner of Ori's dark hut. Soon, hunger and weakness took over, and she had to accept the little food he gave her. One evening, when Ori left to visit the village, Olajumoke seized a chance to escape. She already packed some of her belongings, a small pouch with a few pieces of jewelry and a loaf of stale bread. She crept out of the hut. Her heart raced as she stepped towards the entrance of the compound, hoping to find her way back home. But as soon as she stepped past the mud hut, a giant mysterious tree standing at the front of the compound came to life and started chasing her. She ran as fast as she could, but its vine-like branches shot out, wrapping tightly around her ankles, holding her in place. The tree began to sing in a loud voice. Ori ori yo wo Olajumoke nlo, ori ko lapa, Olajumoke nlo, ori ko lowo, Olajumoke nlo. This song implies that head, Olajumoke is trying to escape. Head without an hand, Olajumoke is trying to run away. Head without a leg, Olajumoke is trying to run away. The song echoed through the forest, reaching Ori at the market square. He immediately dropped everything and started running back home, his head bouncing along the path as he ran faster than any man could. When Ori arrived, panting and furious, he found Olajumoke struggling to free herself. You thought you could escape me, he hissed. You belong to me now. He punished her for trying to run away, binding her even more tightly to the earth and warning her that if she tried to escape again, the consequence would be worse. This happened several times and each attempt left Olajumoke more disheartened. But unknown to Ori, a kind-hearted Banwai tapper named Aremu, who lived nearby, had been watching everything. He had noticed how Ori treated Olajumoke and had even heard the strange song of the tree. One night, while Ori was fast asleep, Aremu approached Olajumoke's hut. Shh, don't be afraid, he whispered. I'm here to help you. Olajumoke's eyes filled with hope and fear. You help me? But how? The tree will tell him. Leave that to me, Aremu said with a reassuring smile. He pulled out a special gourd filled with a magical potion. He started cooking the concoction and Olajumoke prayed for it to work while watching him do his thing. He then poured it over the roots of the giant tree to silence it and make it weaker. Quickly before it wakes, Aremu urged. He took her by the hand and led Olajumoke into the forest, and they moved swiftly and silently through the shadows. They walked for hours, careful not to make any noise that might alert Ori or the spirits that roamed the forest. They crossed rivers, climbed hills, and moved through thickets of thorny bushes until they reached the edge of the forest. You are free now, Aremu said, panting from exhaustion. You must keep moving. Don't look back. Olajumoke held herself, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Aremu. I will never forget you. And he waved goodbye to her as she entered into an old boat at sight. Olajumoke knew she could never return back to her village, as that would be the first place Ori would search for her. Instead, she ventured into the unknown, hoping to find a place where she could finally be free. As she journeyed, she reflected on everything that had happened, realizing how her beauty had been both a blessing and a curse. She promised herself that she would no longer allow herself to be trapped by the expectations or greed of others. As she stepped onto a new path, she whispered a silent prayer to the spirits of the forest, thanking them for sparing her life. And thus, the beautiful Olajumoke walked away from her past, leaving behind the darkness that had tried to claim her and embracing the uncertainty of a new beginning. The end.